There are no lights on gloomy roadways. While driving along the lonesome country road, Jake Harris's thoughts were filled with these phrases. He was leaving a gloomy location that wasn't actual. No matter how quickly he was traveling, he couldn't escape it because it was in his past. It's risky to feel guilty. He had been eating it for a few years, therefore he was leaving the major metropolis by car. He required some alone time. Wisconsin proved to be a great place to be up north in the woods. He wanted to get away for a few days, therefore he was going that way. He began to feel sleepy and he struggled to focus on the road. He had been on the road for a long time. The act of driving was another thing he enjoyed. His preferred route was a long one. He had been traveling a lot ever since his wife and son passed away. Jake occasionally gets in the car and drives off aimlessly. The road had poor lighting. After all, it was a rural road that hadn't undergone rehabilitation since 1982. Now in 2010, it has already started to deteriorate due to weather and heavy truck traffic. Now that the road was in such bad shape, the vehicles sought to stay as far away from it as they could. There were numerous broken lights, but no one bothered to fix them. The road and anything by the side required Jake to pay close attention. He didn't want a chance running over a wild boar or a deer. He reached a wooded area. I must be close, he thought, and pressed the gas pedal a little harder. After passing a dangerous curve, Jake spotted one of the light poles. Right behind the light pole, there was a sign which stated that there is a gas station at about 1 mile down the road. He glanced at the instrument panel. It showed that there is still some gas in the tank. He saw that the light wasn't functioning correctly when he cast his eyes back to the sign. It continued to dim before glowing once again. Jake couldn't recall ever seeing something like it before. Therefore, it was a weird event. In the darkness, something drew his attention close by. There appeared to be a person standing there. He briefly believed that he saw 2 round red eyes, or were they red lights, in the distance. He slowed down a little but was unable to see farther, so he continued to drive. When he was aligned with the sign, his car's front lights began to flicker uncontrollably. Even for a little moment, they were gone. Until he passed the sign, his radio flipped between channels erratically. About 30 yards later, everything resumed as usual. He was startled out of his drowsiness by this unexpected occurrence. Jake pondered the possibility that his battery was malfunctioning. Both events might be explained by bad wiring and interference. But the fact that they occurred at the same moment seemed strange. There was very little probability that such a synchronicity would occur. He thought, "God, I'm tired," and accelerated even harder to get to the gas station as quickly as possible. After a few minutes of relaxation, he will be ready to go. Perhaps having a cup of coffee would be wise. There could be a vending machine there, Jake thought. It will be appropriate to proceed if the weird incidents don't keep happening. The worn-out man kept scanning the area to see if he could discover anything peculiar in the gaps between the trees. Nothing unusual could be seen in his field of vision. Everywhere he turned, all he saw were oak and maple trees. The road was flanked on all sides by lush foliage. He was uncomfortable in the dark areas. When navigating those areas where the lights were out, he had to proceed more slowly and carefully. He saw the petrol station coming into view. It wasn't a large place, but it was clean. An outdated steel framework supported a metallic roof that covered the front of the station, where the pumps had been installed. At one of the gas stations, he parked his blue 1995 Mercedes and filled the tank. At another gas station, a BMW was parked. Only 6 of them could be counted. Through the windows, Jake could see a guy and a little kid as he peeked inside. They appeared to be unsure about what to buy as they looked around. He took another glance around, but nothing was there. He couldn't see too far out in the dark because of how brilliant the lights were all over the place. He felt nervous after what he had earlier witnessed. Was it his imagination? Or was it a shadow with an odd shape? He exited the vehicle and opened the leather jacket's zipper. The area was a little breezy. The weather was gradually turning cooler each day since autumn had already come. His legs had a difficult time moving. His joints felt heavy and rusty since he had been sitting for a long time. Jake wasn't too elderly. In fact, he was just 45 years old and was still in excellent health for a guy of his age. His facial scruff had already developed into a beard. For several days he hadn't shaven. His sunken cheekbones and drooping eyes revealed his weariness and history of excessive drinking. Once the tank was full, he entered the station and purchased a coffee from the vending machine. He listened to the soothing music that was playing in the background while he waited for the cashier. He couldn't see it, but it must have been a radio. A few seconds later, the gas station employee approached the counter. He was a tall, black man who was also rather frail. The man appeared somewhat bored rather than at all worn out. His big brown eyes and large lips were traits of African Americans. Before Jake could head out for the gas, an irate guy barged inside. He had a huge beer belly and was in his 50s. He was wearing a sweaty, sweat-stained red baseball hat. His chest, covered with hair, was heaving. The man's striped shirt, which was just half-buttoned, allowed Jake to see this. "Hey," he muttered, hardly gathering his breath. "There's something out there." The cashier looked shocked and questioned. "What?" There's something out there I saw," the large man said while he was panting and heaving. Jake's brows were wrinkled as he said, "What's out there?" I'm not sure, but it appeared to be a male." The clerk said, "So what? Maybe it was a male, but he was black, you know." "Haha, I'm also black, dude." "No, not at all. He was entirely dark in color. I'm entirely black too. No, not in that way." "Perhaps you just passed a hobo, or perhaps you're simply high on some grass." Both Jake and the salesperson laughed. Jake found the overweight man to be a funny character, but the sincere concern on his face continued to worry him. "It was as dark as tar, you don't understand," the big guy yelled once again. "Nothing else caught my eye. No information at all. Except for the eyes, which were crimson, I believe. Where have you noticed it?" He pointed towards the road with a puffy finger and said, "About a mile from here, that way." "I did too. I have no idea what you two witnessed, so with all due respect, please refrain from saying absurd things. The guy and his little boy are being alarmed by you." He indicated the youngster and the guy. They were not far away. The dude had short brown hair and had a good-looking figure. He was speaking to his son, who had angelic features and brown hair as well. The youngster appeared to be around 9 years old. "Hey, guy, I believe what we witnessed was merely a deception." "No, that wasn't it. When I noticed it moving, my car's lights stopped working. Man, I hardly ever go there. I was unable to see anything." "Get going, dude. Stop the madness. Please calm down. We're all trying to make it through the night. Do you see what I mean? Are you all satisfied right now?" The big guy spoke, hoping for a response. "Oh, come on," the cashier remarked. "Damn lights haven't been fixed in 100 years. "Oh dear. If so, I'm leaving now." When the huge guy noticed the lights going out, he turned and walked toward the front door, saying, "Whatever that thing was, it's coming." Jake asked, "Was it next to the large road sign?" "Kind of. It was close to the sign, but further down the road near a light post. Since the light was off, it was definitely broken. Anyway, I won't be around very long. It drove me completely insane." The big guy murmured before rushing out. Jake remarked, "The guy's crazy," but he knew in his heart that the other man was correct. "Yes, sir, but didn't you say that you had seen it as well?" Jake remarked, "I don't know what I have seen," and he turned to go. This annoyed Jake. There could have been something there after all if one more person reported seeing the weird apparition. He didn't see it clearly and refrained from making any inferences. It could just be a local kid's practical joke. He recalled a tale from his teenage years that was uncannily identical to what he had seen previously. He once carved a cardboard piece into the shape of an evil visage with a handful of his mates. They then folded it into a cylinder-like shape. Then they adhered one cardboard piece to the bottom and one to the top. In the end, it resembled a jack-o'-lantern. They drilled a hole in its back, placed a candle inside, and then fastened it to a tree in their hometown's park. A young boy and girl came to have some fun after dark when no one could see them. They became terrified as soon as they seen it and fled yelling. Jake grinned at the idea since he could still see their terrified faces. It unmistakably resembled one of the jokes. The man wanted to pay when the youngster and he arrived at the counter. Jake turned to face the father and his child, who both grinned as they did so. He followed suit before stumbling to the ground. "You don't deserve it," he thought, "so don't even consider it." He was startled by the little boy's face. He reminded him of Clark, his late son. The kid resembled Clark in every way, his cheekbones, his nose, and the expression in his eyes. Additionally, he had a smile in his eyes. His grin brought up some unpleasant recollections. Jake despised these memories as much as he despised himself because they went back 4 years. Because of him, his wife and son are no longer with him. He felt guilty, and the only way to get rid of that remorse was to die. He was unable to begin a new life after their passing. When he wasn't working, the road was his haven. Jake was in the driver's seat so he could escape the dreaded bottle. While driving, he couldn't drown himself in alcohol. Even if his life didn't matter much to him, he didn't want to murder anybody else. In order to die at least somewhat at peace, He occasionally had fantasies about saving someone else at the price of his own life. When Jake left via the front entrance, he observed the huge man leaving the station in his car. He was operating a rusted-out pickup. Jake pondered how it had survived a century intact and had not collapsed. The man was making few hesitations. He must have applied tremendous gas pressure since he quickly off the road. The obese man sped off in his rundown excuse for a car with no lights, and he vanished into the woods. But he didn't get very far. Following the sound of squealing tires, Jake then heard a thunderous collision. Immediately after the smashing sound, there came a sharp metallic noise followed by a protracted scream. Because of the dense jungle around the station, Jake was unable to see much, but he knew it was horrible. He quickly dashed back inside. "Hey, I think the huge guy just had an accident," he said to the cashier. The cashier announced, "I'm coming right away," and he took out a flashlight. He then followed Jake outside as he fled. The mother and kid didn't leave the house. The mom was concerned that her daughter would witness anything that might cause an accident. Jake arrived to the big man's vehicle. The man appeared to be attempting to dodge something in the road that he realized too late. The vehicle was burning by the side of the road after colliding with a large tree. The two men peered into the vehicle but were unable to make out the driver. They saw the bleeding steering wheel immediately away. Because it was an ancient vehicle, it probably didn't even have an airbag. Even if it did, it was clearly ineffective. The right-hand door wasn't in the proper location, they noted. It was laying approximately 5 yards away between the trees after being torn off of its hinges. For the door to be so far away, the impact didn't appear to be as strong. It seemed impossible, even for a wreck of a car like that pickup truck. Jake exclaimed, "What the hell just happened here?" and raised his hands. "I don't know, guy. There's no indication of the overweight guy." They examined the area surrounding and underneath the automobile. Even after looking around, the men were unable to find anything. Jake was tossing and turning within. He was reminded by the image of the form with the crimson eyes. It would have been okay if he had been the only one to witness it. The fact that the big person had seen something as well, and even closer to the station, was extremely unsettling. What if it made it to the station? Maybe a hint that it was nearby was the road lights going out. "It's a mess, guy," the clerk remarked, appearing perplexed. "Yes, but where in the world did he disappear to? Let's not just stand there. I don't know. I'm going to dial 911. I heard a scream, and I think something carried him through that door, so that's an excellent idea." "Yes, sir." The cashier said, "Something big," his eyes wide with wonder. "But I ain't gonna wait here to see it." "Okay, let's go back inside."